The morning sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the mining camp as Captain Do-hyun checked the daily reports. His team had been working this planet for 8 months now, pulling rare crystals from deep underground. The work was hard, but honest. They were building something here, something that would help humanity expand further into the stars. Do-hyun walked between the prefab buildings where his crew lived and worked. Engineer Minji was already at her station, checking the drilling equipment for the day ahead. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the same blue work uniform as everyone else. She looked up when she saw him coming. "Good morning, Captain. The deep drill hit another crystal vein last night. Looks like a big one this time." Do-hyun smiled. "That's good news. How deep?" "About 3 kilometers down. We'll need to send a team with the heavy equipment." Across the camp, pilot Jinwoo was checking his small transport ship. The vessel was nothing fancy, just a basic cargo hauler that could move people and supplies between the surface and the orbital station. But Jinwoo kept it running perfectly. He was the kind of man who could fix anything that had an engine. Medic Yuna was setting up her daily clinic near the main building. She treated everything from cuts and bruises to the lung problems that sometimes came from breathing too much rock dust. The miners trusted her completely. She had gentle hands and a calm voice that made everyone feel better. The other crew members were getting ready for another day of work. Sunho operated the heavy machinery that broke apart the rock. Yeri managed the supply lines that kept everything running smoothly. Taehyun handled communications with Earth and the other human colonies. Nari worked with the computer systems that controlled the mining operations. They were a good team. They worked well together and trusted each other. Do-hyun was proud of what they had built on this distant world. That was before the ships came. The first sign of trouble was a shadow that passed over the camp. Do-hyun looked up to see 3 large vessels moving across the sky. They were dark and angular, nothing like human ships. They moved without making any sound, which seemed impossible for something so large. "Jinwoo, are those ours?" Do-hyun called. "Out." The pilot was already running toward his ship to check the sensors. "No, sir. I've never seen anything like them." The ships landed in a triangle formation around the mining camp. They were bigger up close, each one the size of a city block. The metal was black and smooth, with strange symbols carved into the sides. Ramps lowered from each ship, and figures began walking out. They were not human. The aliens stood 7 feet, tall and walked on 2 legs like people. But that was where the similarity ended. Their skin was covered in scales that changed color in the sunlight. Their heads were long and narrow, with yellow eyes that seemed to look right through everything. They wore armor that looked like it was made from the same black metal as their ships. One of the aliens walked forward. He was larger than the others and had more decorations on his armor. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough like grinding stone. "I am Commander Thaxos of the Velkan Empire. This world now belongs to us. Your presence here is illegal." Do-hyun stepped forward. He was not a soldier, but he was the captain of this operation. It was his job to protect his people. "This is a human colony. We filed the proper claims with the Galactic Council 3 years ago. We have every right to be here." Thaxos made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your council has no power here. The Velkan Empire takes what it needs. You will work for us now." "We're not slaves," Do-hyun said firmly. "If you want to mine this planet, you can negotiate with Earth for a proper contract." The alien commander's eyes grew brighter. "You misunderstand. You are already slaves. You just don't know it yet. More Velkans came out of the ships. They carried weapons that hummed with energy and devices that looked like metal collars. Before the humans could react, the aliens were surrounding them. "Resistance is pointless," Thaxos said. "We have perfected the art of control. No species has ever broken free from our methods." The Velkans moved quickly. They grabbed each human and forced the metal collars around their necks. The devices locked into place with a soft click. Do-hyun felt a strange tingling sensation as the collar activated. "What are these things?" Minji asked, trying to pull at the metal around her throat. "Neural control collars," Thaxos explained. "They are made from quantum steel, the strongest material in the galaxy. They cannot be broken or removed. They will ensure your complete obedience to Velkan commands. Do-yun felt something changing in his mind. His thoughts became fuzzy and distant. He wanted to fight to protect his people, but the collar was making it hard to think clearly. Around him, he could see his crew struggling with the same problem. The collars suppress your free will, Thaxos continued. You will work in our mines. You will extract the crystals we need. You will do exactly as you are told, and you will never question our orders. The alien commander walked up to Do-hyun and stared down at him with those yellow eyes. You seem like their leader. I can see the defiance in your eyes, even through the collar's influence. You want to fight us, don't you? Do-hyun tried to speak, but the words came out slowly. We will not be your slaves. Thaxos laughed again. Brave words from someone who can barely think straight. Tell me, human captain, do you think you can break that chain around your neck? The alien pointed at the collar with one clawed finger. Go ahead, try to break it, I dare you. No creature in the galaxy has ever managed to destroy quantum steel through force alone. Do-hyun looked at the collar, then at his crew. They were all watching him, hoping he could find a way to save them. The metal felt cold and heavy against his skin. He could feel it pressing against his mind, trying to crush his will to resist. But somewhere deep inside, past the collar's influence, Do-hyun felt something that the aliens had not expected. Not just defiance, but curiosity. Not just anger, but the desire to understand. He was an engineer before he became a captain. He solved problems for a living. I accept your dare, he said quietly. Thaxos seemed pleased. Excellent. When you fail, your crew will understand that resistance is truly hopeless. Take them to the mines. Let them begin their new lives as servants of the Velkan Empire. As the aliens herded them toward the mining tunnels, Do-hyun looked back at the ships that had brought their captors. Soon, he thought, those ships would leave. The Velkans would grow comfortable and careless, and when that happened, he would find a way to turn their own weapon against them. The collar was strong, but human ingenuity was stronger. 3 weeks had passed since the Velkans took control of the mining camp. Every morning, Do-hyun and his crew were marched into the deep tunnels to dig for crystals. The neural collars made them obey without question, but they could not stop the humans from thinking. Do-hyun worked slowly with his mining tools, studying the collar around his neck whenever the Velkan guards were not watching. The quantum steel felt different from any metal he had worked with before. It was warm to the touch and seemed to vibrate slightly, as if it had energy flowing through it. The frequency is wrong, he whispered to himself during a quiet moment. Minji was working at a nearby crystal deposit. She heard him speak and moved, closer, pretending to examine a rock formation. What frequency? She asked quietly. The collar. It hums at a specific rate. But listen to the planet. Minji stopped her work and listened carefully. Deep underground, she could hear something else. The planet itself seemed to be singing, a low harmonic tone that came from the rock around them. The geological resonance, she whispered. The crystals create natural vibrations in the stone. Do-hyun nodded. The collar frequency and the planet frequency are different. What happens when two sound waves meet? They either cancel each other out or make each other stronger. Minji's eyes grew wide as she understood. You think we can use the planet's song to affect the collars? Maybe, but we need to test it first. That evening, back in their sleeping quarters, Do-hyun shared his discovery with the others. The Velkans allowed them to talk freely since the collars prevented any real rebellion. What the aliens did not know was that humans were very good at finding ways around problems. The mining equipment, Jinwoo said thoughtfully. Some of those machines work by creating vibrations to break up rock. Could we modify them? Yuna looked worried. But the guards watch us all the time. How could we change the machines without them noticing? We do it slowly, Sunho suggested. One small part at a time. Make it look like normal maintenance. Hieri had been thinking about the supply lines. I can make sure we have the right tools, Small changes to the daily equipment orders, nothing that would make them suspicious. Over the next few days, they began their secret work. Taehyun used his communication skills to create false reports that would explain any unusual sounds from their section of the mine. Nari accessed the computer systems to study the technical specifications of their equipment. Do-hyun started collecting materials during his shifts. A crystal fragment here, a piece of rare metal there, an energy cell from a broken device. He hid these items in his clothes and smuggled them back to the living quarters. The work was dangerous. If the Velkans discovered what they were doing, the punishment would be severe. But Do-hyun remembered Commander Thaxos daring him to break the chain. Every time the collar pressed against his thoughts, he reminded himself of that challenge. Minji proved to be invaluable in understanding how to modify the mining equipment. She found ways to adjust the harmonic generators without changing their outward appearance. The machines would still break rock during the day, but they could also produce the specific frequencies that Do-hyun needed. The quantum steel responds to certain sound patterns, she explained to the group. If we can match the planet's natural frequency and amplify it, we might be able to make the collar material more flexible. Flexible enough to reshape? Do-hyun asked. Maybe, but it would take time, and we would need to work on it while wearing it. Jinwoo had found them a place to work in secret. Deep in the abandoned mine shafts, there were areas where the Velkans never went. The passages were too narrow for their large ships and too unstable for their heavy equipment. But humans were smaller and more adaptable. There's a chamber about half a kilometer down Tunnel 7, he reported. It's big enough for our work, and the rock formation will hide any sounds we make. They began moving their collected materials to the hidden workshop. Each day, one or two of them would slip away during shift changes to add something to their growing collection. Yuna kept watch for patrol patterns, timing the guards' movements down to the minute. The first real test came 2 weeks later. Do-hyun had managed to build a small harmonic generator from salvaged parts. It was crude and barely worked, but it could produce the frequency he needed. In the hidden chamber surrounded by his crew, Do-hyun activated the device and held it near his collar. The quantum steel began to vibrate in response to the sound waves. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the metal started to feel warm. It's working, Minji breathed. The molecular structure is becoming unstable. Do-hyun pressed gently on the collar. The metal gave slightly under his touch, like clay that was beginning to soften. It was not much, but it was enough to prove that his theory was correct. We can reshape it, he said with wonder. The quantum steel can be molded when it's exposed to the right frequency. The implications were enormous. If they could reshape the collars, they might be able to change how they worked. Instead of suppressing their minds, the devices might be modified to enhance their abilities, but the work would be slow and careful. They could only make small changes at a time, and they had to be sure the Velkans did not notice anything different. What are we going to turn them into? Sunho asked. Do-hyun thought about Commander Thaxos and his mocking challenge. The alien had dared him to break the chain around his neck. But breaking it was not enough. He needed to do something that would show the Velkans just how wrong they were about human creativity. Not chains, he said finally. Crowns. We're going to forge these collars into crowns. The others looked at him with confusion and hope. Think about it, Do-hyun continued. They put chains on us to make us slaves. But humans don't stay slaves. We take the symbols of our oppression and turn them into symbols of our power. These collars will become crowns of freedom. Taehyun smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. The Velkans think they've conquered us. Instead, they've given us the materials to crown ourselves as kings. The work began in earnest. Every day they mined crystals for their captors. Every night they worked on their secret project. The quantum steel was difficult to shape, but human determination was stronger than alien metal. Do-hyun looked at his partially transformed collar in the dim light of their hidden workshop. Soon, he thought, the Velkans would learn what happened when they underestimated human ingenuity. 6 weeks into their secret project, Do-hyun's collar no longer looked like the simple metal band the Velkins had put around his neck. Working carefully each night in the hidden chamber, he had reshaped the quantum steel into something more elaborate. The collar now had raised sections that curved upward like the points of a crown. The transformation was slow work. Each night, Do-hyun could only reshape a small section before the metal cooled and hardened again. But the harmonic generator that Minji had helped him improve was getting better at maintaining the right frequency for longer periods. The neural suppression is getting weaker, Yuna observed as she checked Do-hyun's vital signs. Your brain activity is closer to normal levels. I can think more clearly, Do-hyun agreed. The collar is still there, but it's not pressing on my mind as much. This was good news, but it also created a new problem. As the collar's control weakened, Do-hyun found it harder to hide his true feelings from the Velkin guards. He had to work harder to appear as submissive as the other slaves. Minji had made progress on her own collar as well. She had managed to create small loops and curves that redirected the device's energy flow. Instead of all the power going into her brain, to suppress her thoughts, some of it was now cycling back into the collar itself. I think the original design had a flaw, she explained to the group. The Velkins made the collars too efficient. They channel so much energy that they can power themselves if we redirect the flow correctly. Jinwoo was working on his collar, too, but he was taking a different approach. As a pilot, he understood navigation and communication systems. He was trying to turn his collar into a device that could coordinate with the others. If we can link our collars together, we could share information instantly, he said, like a mental radio network. The work was becoming more sophisticated as they learned more about quantum steel. Sunho had discovered that the metal could store energy like a battery. Hieri found that it could be programmed to respond to specific thoughts or emotions. Taehyun learned that it could amplify mental signals across long distances. But their secret project was about to face its biggest test. Commander Thaxos had noticed that the humans in Section 7 were working with unusual coordination. They seemed to know where each other was without looking. They moved together in ways that suggested they were communicating somehow. The alien commander decided to investigate personally. Something is different about these slaves, he told his lieutenant as they walked through the mining tunnels. They are too organized, too efficient. When they reached Do-hyun's work area, Thaxos stopped and stared. The human captain was operating a drilling machine, but there was something odd about his appearance. The collar around his neck looked different. You, Thaxos called out. Stop working and come here. Do-hyun set down his tools and walked over to the Velkin commander. He kept his head down and tried to look as obedient as possible, but Thaxos was not fooled. Look at me, the alien ordered. When Do-hyun raised his head, Thaxos could see that the collar had been changed. The simple metal band now had decorative elements that rose up like the points of a primitive crown. What have you done to your collar? Thaxos demanded. Do-hyun had prepared for this moment. The metal was rough, Commander. It was cutting into my skin. I used the mining tools to smooth it out so I could work better. Thaxos examined the collar more closely. The quantum steel was still intact and the control systems seemed to be functioning. The human was still obedient and responsive to commands, but the appearance was definitely different. You have turned your slave collar into a crown, the alien observed with amusement. I don't understand, Commander. Of course you don't. Your primitive mind cannot grasp the irony. You are a slave pretending to be a king. How perfectly human. Other Velkin guards had gathered around to see what was happening. They found the situation amusing as well. Here was a human slave who had decorated his collar to look like royal jewelry. This is what humans do when they cannot face reality, Thaxos announced to his soldiers. They create fantasies to comfort themselves. This slave has turned the symbol of his bondage into a symbol of imaginary power. The aliens laughed at Do-hyun's expense. They saw his modified collar as proof of human weakness and delusion. But Thaxos was more interested than amused. Tell me, human captain, do you feel like a king when you wear your little crown? I feel like what I am, Commander, your slave. Good. But I am curious about your craftsmanship. Show me how you modified the quantum steel. This was the most dangerous moment yet. If Thaxos discovered the harmonic generator or the hidden workshop, their entire plan would be exposed. But Do-hyun had anticipated this possibility. I used the vibration from the drilling equipment, he explained. When the metal gets warm from the machine's operation, it becomes soft enough to reshape with simple tools. To demonstrate, Do-hyun activated a nearby drill and held his collar near the vibrating mechanism. The quantum steel began to warm up, and he was able to make a small adjustment to one of the crown points. Thaxos watched with interest. Fascinating. The drilling frequency affects the molecular structure of the collar. I was not aware of this property. It only works for small changes, Commander. The collar still functions normally. Indeed it does. Thaxos tested the collar's control systems by giving Do-hyun a direct mental command. The human obeyed immediately, proving that the device was still working. Very well, the alien commander decided. You may continue your artistic work. I find it amusing that you have chosen to wear a crown while remaining a slave. It shows the futility of human pride. Thaxos turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at Do-hyun with those yellow eyes. But remember, human captain, no matter how you decorate that collar, it is still a chain around your neck, and no force in the galaxy can break quantum steel. I understand, Commander. After the Velkans left, the other humans gathered around Do-hyun. They had been terrified that their secret would be discovered. He let you keep it, Minji said with amazement. He thinks it's a joke, Do-hyun replied. He sees a slave wearing a crown as the ultimate symbol of human delusion. But we know better, Jinwoo added quietly. Yes. We know that this crown is becoming something more than decoration. Each night as we reshape the quantum steel, we're not just changing its appearance, we're changing its function. Sunho nodded. The Velkans gave us chains to make us slaves, but we're forging those chains into crowns to make us free. That night, they returned to their hidden workshop with renewed determination. Thaxos had unknowingly given them permission to continue their work. The alien commander thought he was watching a human slave play dress-up with his collar. He had no idea that he was watching the birth of a revolution. Do-hyun looked at his reflection in a piece of polished metal. The crown-shaped collar gleamed in the dim light of the workshop. Soon, he thought, this symbol of oppression would become a symbol of liberation. The Velkans had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated human creativity and the power of hope. Chains could bind the body, but the human spirit always found a way to break free. 2 months after beginning their secret work, Do-hyun made the final adjustment to his transformed collar. The quantum steel crown now had 7 points that rose elegantly from the base, each one carved with intricate patterns that helped focus the device's energy. But more importantly, the crown no longer suppressed his mind. Instead, it amplified his thoughts and connected him to his crew in ways the Velkans had never intended. The neural network is stable, he whispered to himself as he felt the familiar presence of his team members in his thoughts. He could sense Minji's analytical mind working on technical problems, Jinwoo's spatial awareness tracking movement patterns, and Yuna's empathic nature monitoring everyone's emotional state. The crown had become something completely different from the collar the Velkans had installed. Where the original device had been designed to crush human will, the modified version enhanced human capabilities. It was still made from the same quantum steel, but its purpose had been completely reversed. Are you ready? Minji's voice came through their mental link. Almost, Do-hyun replied without speaking aloud. Help the others complete their transformations first. Over the past weeks, Do-hyun had been secretly helping his crew modify their own collars. Each person's crown took a different shape based on their personality and skills. Minji's crown had geometric patterns that enhanced her engineering abilities. Jinwoo's had flowing curves that improved his piloting instincts. Yuna's had gentle spirals that amplified her healing powers. The process was dangerous. If they made a mistake while reshaping the quantum steel, the collar could malfunction and damage their minds permanently. But they had learned to work carefully, making small changes over many nights until each crown was perfect. Sunho and Hieri are ready, Jinwoo reported through the mental network. Taehyun and Nari need 1 more night to finish. Then we wait, Do-hyun decided. We all go free together, or none of us do. The next evening, as the Velkin guards changed shifts, the 8 humans gathered in their hidden workshop for the final time. Each person now wore a crown instead of a collar, though from a distance they still looked like the simple metal bands the aliens expected to see. The neural suppression is completely gone, Yuna confirmed as she checked everyone's brain activity with improvised medical equipment. We're all thinking clearly now. And the enhancement effects are getting stronger, Taehyun added. I can hear Velkin communications from their command center 3 levels up. Nari had been working on the computer systems in the mine. I've mapped all their security protocols. When we make our move, I can shut down their automated defenses. Do-hyun looked at his team with pride. They had started as prisoners, but they had transformed themselves into something more powerful than the Velkins had ever imagined. The aliens thought they were still controlling 8 human slaves. In reality, they were about to face 8 human warriors whose abilities had been enhanced by the very devices meant to enslave them. Remember the plan, Do-hyun said. We don't just escape. We liberate every human on this planet and make sure the Velkins can never do this to anyone else. The rebellion began at dawn. Minji struck first, using her enhanced engineering skills to create an energy disruption field that knocked out power to the main guard station. The Velkin soldiers found themselves trapped in darkness while their weapons and communication systems failed. Jinwoo moved with impossible speed and precision, his crown-enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge energy blasts while he commandeered a Velkin aircraft. Within minutes, he was providing air support for the ground assault. Yuna proved that healing and fighting were not opposite skills. Her empathic abilities let her predict enemy movements, while her medical knowledge showed her exactly where to strike to disable opponents without killing them. Sunho discovered that his crown could channel the planet's geological energy. He caused controlled earthquakes that collapsed Velkin fortifications while leaving human areas untouched. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Hyeri used her supply management expertise to coordinate the rebellion's logistics. She made sure every human fighter had the equipment they needed while denying resources to the enemy. Taehyun's communication abilities were enhanced to incredible levels. He could intercept and scramble Velkin military transmissions while coordinating human forces across the entire planet. Nari turned the mining facility's computer systems into weapons. Automated equipment that had been used to extract crystals now served as mechanical soldiers fighting for human freedom. But it was Do-hyun who led the charge into the main Velkin command center. His crown blazed with energy as he faced down groups of alien soldiers. The quantum steel had not just freed his mind, it had enhanced his physical abilities as well. He was faster, stronger, and more resilient than any normal human. Impossible, Commander Thaxos snarled as he watched his forces fall back before the human assault. The collars should prevent this. You should be our slaves. We were never your slaves, Do-hyun replied, his crown glowing brighter as he approached. The alien commander. We were your students. You taught us about quantum steel and neural control. Thank you for the lesson. The mental network connecting all 8 humans allowed them to fight with perfect coordination. They moved like dancers, each person knowing exactly where the others were and what they were doing. The Velkins had never faced opponents who could share thoughts and coordinate actions instantly. The collars, Thaxos realized with growing horror. You didn't break them. You changed them. We forged them into something better, Do-hyun confirmed. You gave us chains and dared us to break them. Instead, we turned them into crowns. As more human workers joined the rebellion, they discovered that proximity to the crown-wearing leaders began to weaken their own collars. The quantum steel devices had been designed to suppress human neural activity, but the modified crowns generated a field that had the opposite effect. The transformation is spreading, Minji reported through the mental link. Every human near us is beginning to break free from collar control. This was the moment they had hoped for but hardly dared to expect. The rebellion was not just freeing Do-hyun's original crew. It was liberating every human on the planet. Workers in distant mining sites felt their thoughts clearing as the crown-generated field propagated through the planet's quantum steel deposits. The same mineral the Velkins had used to make unbreakable chains was now carrying the signal of human freedom across the entire world. Fall back to the ships, Thaxos ordered his remaining forces. We cannot fight an enemy that turns our own technology against us. But as the Velkans retreated, they found their path blocked by hundreds of newly freed humans. Workers who had been slaves that morning were now standing as free people, ready to fight for their liberty. The transformation technique was spreading beyond just the collars. Humans were learning to reshape other quantum steel devices, turning Velkan weapons into tools of liberation and Velkan vehicles into instruments of human victory. Commander Thaxos found himself surrounded in the landing bay where his ship waited. Do-hyun stood before him, no longer the submissive slave the alien had mocked months earlier. The human's crown caught the light of the alien sun, casting rainbow patterns across the metal walls. "You should have listened to your own dare," Do-hyun said calmly. "You challenged me to break the chain around my neck. I did exactly what you asked." "This is not over," Thaxos threatened. "The Velkan Empire will return with a larger fleet." "Let them come," Do-hyun replied. "We'll be ready, and now we know how to turn their weapons into our crowns." The alien commander and his surviving soldiers boarded their ship and lifted off, leaving the humans in control of their world. But Do-hyun knew this was just the beginning. Word of their success would spread to other human colonies, and the technique for transforming collars into crowns would spread with it. As he watched the Velkan ships disappear into space, Do-hyun touched his crown and smiled. The aliens had thought they were putting chains on human slaves. Instead, they had given humanity the tools to crown themselves as kings. 6 months after the Velkan retreat, Do-hyun stood before the largest gathering of humans in galactic history. Representatives from every human colony, station, and ship had come to the liberated world of Kepler 442b to learn about the transformation technique that had freed them all. The Great Assembly Hall had been built in the center of what was once the Velkan Command Center. Where alien oppression had once ruled, human voices now filled the air with discussions of freedom, technology, and the future of their species among the stars. The technique is simple in principle, but requires patience in practice, Minji explained, to a group of engineers from the Tau Ceti colonies. Her crown gleamed as she demonstrated how to reshape quantum steel using harmonic frequencies. The key is understanding that the material wants to change. The Velkans designed it to be flexible, but they only programmed one specific shape. Around the hall, dozens of similar demonstrations were taking place. Jinwoo was teaching pilots how to modify Velkan navigation equipment. Yuna was showing medical officers how to use quantum steel to enhance healing abilities. Each member of the original crew had become a teacher, sharing their knowledge with humans from across the galaxy. But the most important lesson was not technical. It was philosophical. The Velkans made a fundamental mistake, Do-hyun addressed the main assembly. They believed that technology could control the human spirit. They thought that by putting chains around our necks they could make us forget who we were. The crowd listened intently. Many of them wore their own crowns now, quantum steel devices that had been transformed from symbols of oppression into symbols of liberation. The transformation was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. What they didn't understand is that humans don't just adapt to their tools. We adapt our tools to ourselves. We take what our enemies give us and make it serve our purposes instead of theirs. Sunho stepped forward to address a specific question from the audience. The geological resonance technique works on any planet with crystal deposits. We've tested it on 17 different worlds so far. The quantum steel responds the same way everywhere. This was crucial information. The Velkan Empire had used their collar technology to enslave species across hundreds of worlds. But now humans were carrying the liberation technique to those same worlds, freeing not just other humans but any species that had been trapped by Velkan control devices. Hieri reported on the supply networks that were supporting the liberation movement. We've established manufacturing centers on 12 colonies. Each one can produce the harmonic generators needed for the transformation process. We are also training local teams to maintain and repair the equipment. The scope of the operation was enormous. What had started as 8 humans trying to escape slavery had become a galaxy-wide movement to end Velkan oppression forever. Taehyun brought news from the communication networks. We've made contact with 43 different species that were enslaved by the Velkans. 31 of them have successfully adapted our technique to their own biology. The others are working on modifications that will allow them to use quantum steel technology safely. This was perhaps the most remarkable development of all. The crown transformation was not limited to humans. Other species were finding ways to turn Velkan control devices into tools of enhancement and liberation. Nari had been analyzing the broader implications. The Velkan Empire's entire power structure was based on their control technology. Without it, their military effectiveness has dropped by over 60%. Several subject species have declared independence, and the Velkans don't have the resources to fight them all. But the most significant moment came when Commander Thaxos himself appeared on the main communication screen. The alien commander looked older and more tired than when he had fled Kepler 442b. His armor was less polished, and his eyes had lost some of their arrogant shine. "I have come to negotiate," he announced to the shocked assembly. Do-hyun stepped forward to respond. His crown caught the light from the communication screen, creating patterns that seemed to dance across his face. "What do you want to negotiate, Commander?" "The return of our technology. The quantum steel belongs to the Velkan Empire. You have stolen it and perverted its purpose." A murmur of anger went through the crowd, but Do-hyun raised his hand for silence. "You gave us this technology when you put collars around our necks. You said it was unbreakable. You dared me to try to break it. I did exactly what you challenged me to do." Thaxos seemed to struggle with his words. "You were supposed to be slaves. The collars were meant to ensure your obedience, and they did for a while. But you underestimated human creativity. We didn't break your chains, Commander. We forged them into crowns. The Empire will offer you compensation for the return of our technology. Raw materials, energy sources, territorial concessions." Do-hyun looked around at the assembly hall filled with free humans and their allies from across the galaxy. Then he looked back at the alien commander on the screen. "We have a counter-offer, Commander. Surrender your remaining collar-equipped fleets and we'll teach you how to transform them into enhancement devices. Your people can join the galaxy as equals instead of conquerors." "Impossible. The Velkan Empire does not surrender. Then the Velkan Empire will continue to shrink until it disappears entirely. Every day more species learn our techniques. Every day more of your former slaves become free. How long before you have no subjects left to rule?" The transmission ended abruptly as Thaxos cut the connection, but Do-hyun knew the alien commander had heard the truth in his words. Later that evening, as the great assembly wound down, Do-hyun walked through the halls of the liberated facility. Everywhere he looked, he saw humans and their allies working together, learning from each other, building a better future. Minji found him standing in what had once been Thaxos's private office. "The last transport leaves tomorrow morning," she said. "Everyone will carry the transformation techniques back to their home systems. And then we build something the galaxy has never seen before. A confederation of free species, all working together as equals." Jinwoo joined them, along with the rest of the original crew. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the stars through the large window. "Do you think the Velkans will try again?" Yuna asked. "Probably," Do-hyun replied. "But it won't matter. The idea is already spreading. You can't unteach knowledge or unfree a liberated mind." Sunho pointed to a distant star system. "I heard that the Rigel colonies finished their first crown transformation yesterday. 300 humans, all free. And the Centauri system completed their teaching program," Hieri added. "They're already sending instructors to other worlds." Taehyun had been monitoring the communication networks. "The transformation technique has reached over 200 worlds now. The Velkan Empire controls less than half the territory they held 6 months ago." Nari smiled as she accessed the latest reports. 17 species have declared independence this week alone. The cascade is accelerating. Do-hyun touched his crown, feeling the warm energy that flowed through the quantum steel. The device that had once been meant to enslave him now connected him to a network of free minds across the galaxy, The Vulcans gave us these collars to make us slaves, he said softly. Instead, they gave us the tools to crown ourselves as kings of our own destiny. As if in response to his words, the crowns worn by his crew began to glow softly in the starlight. The quantum steel resonated with harmonics that carried across space, connecting with other crowns on other worlds, binding together a growing network of liberation. The chain had been broken, the crown had been forged, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the depths of space, Commander Thaxos received reports of another system declaring independence. He looked at the collar control device on his command console and wondered if it was too late for the Vulcan Empire to learn the lesson that humanity had taught them. Chains could be broken, but crowns could be worn with pride. The choice, as always, was theirs to make.